Okay, um, so let's slow this down and really walk through it. Because when you zoom out far enough, this stops being about a headline or a batch of photos, and it turns into a case study in how power protects itself when it's allowed to compound without oversight. I'm going to talk this through the way I actually think about things, with pauses, with connective tissue, because none of this exists in isolation. So here we go. What was released from the Epstein estate isn't just disturbing because of what's visible in the images. It's disturbing because of what those images confirm. They confirm proximity. They confirm access. They confirm repeated presence. Um, and in any serious system analysis, proximity plus access over time is never accidental. The House Oversight Committee didn't stumble into these materials. They obtained them through a formal process, 95,000 photographs. That number alone tells you something fundamental. This was not a casual operation. Epstein documented everything. People like that always do. Documentation is leverage. It's insurance. It's power. And out of the first 25,000 photos reviewed, the committee chose to release 1919. That's a microscopic sample. And yet even that tiny slice includes multiple images of Donald Trump with young women whose faces are redacted for survivor protection, on planes, at parties, in private settings tied directly to Epstein. Now pause there, because Trump has repeatedly said he barely knew Epstein, that he wasn't around him, that he wasn't involved. But systems don't care about rhetoric. Systems care about evidence density, and the density here is increasing, not decreasing. Then you move from photos of people to photos of objects. Trump branded condoms. That detail matters. Branding is intentional. Branding means someone wanted association. Rubber gloves, sexual restraints, jawbreaker gags, humps, extreme restraint devices, warranty documentation for those gags photographed in place. These are not symbolic artifacts. These are physical tools of abuse. And they were photographed inside Epstein's estate, which tells you two things at once. First, this was not a rumor-driven narrative. Second, whoever cataloged this expected it to matter later. Now let's talk about the desk photo. A woman appears passed out on Epstein's desk, face redacted, status unknown, alive, unconscious, drugged. We don't know. But what we do know is that investigators thought the image was significant enough to document and preserve. That's not gossip. That's evidentiary behavior. Now scale up again. Congressman Robert Garcia has been very clear.
Obviously, just last night, we received about 95,000 photographs from the Epstein estate. I want to be clear. Our committee, Oversight Democrats, have gone through maybe about 25,000 of them so far. So there's an enormous amount of photos that we have not gone through. It will take days and weeks to ensure that we go through those photos and that a redaction is done in the appropriate way. Let me just also say that clearly, we have put out, I think, maybe 15 to 20 of those photos this morning. Democrats have. We will continue to put out more photos in the days and weeks ahead. But I just caution folks that the redaction process and ensuring that we are protecting the survivors and the women who were abused by Epstein are protected.
He has also stated publicly that many of the unreleased images are incredibly disturbing. Here's where strategy enters. Some of those images are being held back deliberately to see whether Donald Trump complies with the legal deadline to release the Epstein files. This isn't theatrical. It's leverage. It's conditional disclosure. It's Congress testing whether the executive branch will obey the law when the law implicates power. Because this is not a subpoena fight. This is a statute, a law passed by Congress, and failure to comply carries criminal implications. That distinction matters. Thomas Massey, a Republican, has explained this plainly.
If DOJ doesn't release the files it has by next Friday, is there anything Congress can do to compel that to happen?
Well, I mean, it's a crime if they don't. It's not like they're in contempt of Congress because they didn't respond to a subpoena. This is a new law with, criminal implications if they don't follow it. But I was encouraged, again, by the fact that they went back to these three judges and got the judges to release the grand jury material to the DOJ.
Thank you.
Is that grand jury material enough, do you think,
No.
to comply with the law?
No, the grand jury material is just a small fraction of what the DOJ needs to release, because the FBI and DOJ probably has evidence that they chose not to take to the grand jury, because the evidence they're in possession of would implicate other people, not Epstein or Maxwell. So the grand jury material is probably going to just be mostly facts and evidence that was used to convict those two. And what we want to see are the facts and evidence that the FBI and the DOJ have never given to a grand jury.
If DOJ doesn't release the files, it's not just contempt, it's a crime. And he's also pointed out something that's been largely ignored in mainstream coverage. Grand jury material is only a fraction of what DOJ has. Grand juries see what prosecutors choose to show them. The FBI and DOJ possess far more evidence than what was ever presented in court. And historically, when cases involve powerful people, the most explosive evidence never reaches a grand jury at all. Now add another layer. Bloomberg reported, based on FOIA documents, that around March, the DOJ mobilized massive redaction teams, hundreds, possibly thousands, of FBI agents and DOJ lawyers were assigned to go through Epstein files. Survivors and Senate Democrats now allege those files may have been manipulated, altered, or destroyed. That's not paranoia. That's pattern recognition. Large-scale redaction efforts without independent auditing create opportunities for selective omission. Then comes the undercover recording. Joseph Schmidt, a DOJ official with decades of experience, was recorded stating that thousands of pages of Epstein files exist.
Well, those files do exist.
Yeah, thousands and thousands of pages of files. They'll redact every Republican or conservative person in those files, leave all the liberal, Democratic people in those files.
Did they visited that Maxwell person?
Yeah.
And also involved?
Got transferred to a minimum security prison too recently, which is against BOP policy because she's a convicted sex offender. They're offering her something to keep it on shut.
What do you do for work here?
I work for the Department of Justice.
Okay.
Been there like 23 years. I'm an analyst. I'll be acting deputy chief of our office for a few months starting next week. I work closely with all the federal law enforcement agencies, the U.S. attorney's offices, the prosecutors and stuff. The thing is, it's interesting because I do deal with so many of the agencies, like the Bureau of Prisons, the Marshal Service, the FBI, U.S. attorney's offices.
Whether that claim is fully accurate is for investigators to determine, but the existence of such internal discussions tells you something critical. Everyone inside the system knows these files are radioactive. And then there's Ghislaine Maxwell, convicted child sex trafficker, Epstein's closest associate. She spoke with Trump's DOJ leadership. She now refuses to speak with Congress and plans to invoke the Fifth Amendment. She was transferred from a maximum security facility to a minimum security camp, something multiple legal experts have noted is highly unusual for someone convicted of her crimes. That's not a coincidence. That's preferential handling. And when you connect that to Trump's repeated public defenses, to his DOJ's internal behavior, to the redaction blitz, you start seeing alignment. Now let's address the political messaging. Mike Johnson says Trump has nothing to hide.
President Trump has nothing to do with it. He has said himself he has nothing to hide, and that's clearly what they've been trying to do. They're trying to attack President Trump. This is what they've done. They weaponized the justice system over the last several years to go after him, and this is their latest attempt. And they don't have a platform or a principle to defend on the Democrat Party side, so they put all their eggs in this basket. And that's why you hear endlessly about Epstein, Epstein, Epstein. Everything's about Epstein.
That Epstein is a hoax, that this is all weaponization. But systems don't care about denial. Systems care about contradictions. Trump has said he was never with Epstein, never around him.
I believe that some of the people that we mentioned are being looked at very seriously for their relationship to Jeffrey Epstein, but they were with him all the time. I wasn't at all. And we'll see what happens. What I just don't want Epstein to do is detract from the great success of the Republican Party.
Yet photographs, flight logs, contemporaneous reporting, and now estate materials directly contradict that claim. He said he barely knew Epstein, but Epstein's own emails tell a different story. Emails where Epstein says Trump spent hours at his house, emails mocking Trump, emails referencing compromising material, emails involving Steve Bannon, Trump's top advisor at the time, meeting with Epstein. Steve Bannon himself once said that what Epstein knew about Trump was what he feared most. That's not speculation. That's a recorded statement. Then you have the broader network, Jean-Luc Brunel, elite model management, a pattern of young women recruited, trafficked, abused. This wasn't limited to Epstein's island. It was global. Modeling agencies, private planes, political donors, billionaires, politicians, media figures. And Trump was socially embedded in that ecosystem during the exact period when it was most active. That matters. Because when you're analyzing systemic abuse, you don't look for a single smoking gun. You look for overlapping circles of access, protection, and silence. And that's exactly what this looks like. So when you see 95,000 photos, when you see selective releases, when you see redaction teams, when you see witnesses invoking the Fifth, when you see preferential prison transfers, when you see political leaders dismissing evidence before it's fully released, you're not watching chaos. You're watching a system under stress. And systems under stress reveal their true architecture. What happens next depends on enforcement, on whether DOJ complies, on whether Congress holds firm, on whether the public keeps paying attention after the initial shock fades. Because the most reliable defense for entrenched power has always been time. People get tired. Outrage fades. Attention shifts. That's the real battle here. So if you actually care about truth, about protecting survivors, about ensuring that wealth and power don't place someone above the law, stay engaged. Share credible reporting. Support independent media. Don't let this get memory hold. Because accountability doesn't happen automatically. It only happens when enough people refuse to look away.